Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
We're on.
We rehearsed this. Hello and welcome to Summer Solstice.
Yay.
Yay.
Who doesn't love summer solstice?
Here we are, the longest day of the year.
Hallelujah. It was a
Yeah.
long, cold winter in these parts.
Yeah,
And we are definitely celebrating the warmth of summer and the long days.
we are. And the short nights. I started recognizing that. I don't know if that's a second half of life kind of thing, but I started recognizing the shorter and shorter nights too.
Yeah. We'll be heading in the other direction pretty soon.
We will. We will.
Yeah, we're actually recording this a couple days beforehand, but we're going to be looking at the chart and the mythology of the 2024 summer solstice happening on June 20th at 2:51 p.m. Mountain Time, where we're located.
Yep.
That's what these charts are for, the body graph on the left and the astrological wheel on the right.
And here they are, and maybe to set the stage a little bit before we jump into the charts, is to give some context about summer solstice and about some of the ancient gods and goddesses that were associated. Now I'm forgetting the goddesses, but the gods are Ra, of course, and Apollo, and some of the Jupiter, and this was about bringing the fire. This was the longest day. But with the longest day, what also happened was the shorter days are coming. So everyone came together to light their fires, to bring their fires together. We blew them out. We had festival. We relit them in bonfires. And then everyone took a piece home to hold and to covet until wintertime when they needed it again. So this is a celebration. This is a harvest. This is a fullness. This is a flowering. This is sexual. This is hot. It is creation. It is about being the fullest expression of what has been created, and from the darkness of winter and the beauty of spring.
Abundance.
Let's see, what else?
Well, just that every culture and society since the beginning of mankind has observed these solstices and the equinoxes.
Absolutely.
Every ancient architecture, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, the pyramids, you name it. It is just ingrained in our DNA to recognize this rhythm of the sun and the movement of the earth.
Yeah, we just realized just right up the road from us, there is a monument of a native monument that pays homage to this time, and the sun rises and illuminates it. So we have been doing that to just honor and thank, and the connection we have with the sun. It's such a primal and deep thing. So this is quite a celebration.
It always is, yeah. Thanks for joining us and for tuning in. Let's see. Well, to put this particular solstice in context as well, I did want to bring in the lunar cycles.
Right.
We've been doing this since the Rave New Year this year in January of 2024. And there's an incredible pattern that we've been noticing in the lunar cycles, particularly the new moon. And when we look at the lunar cycles, they really are the chapters of the year.
Right.
Each month, or month is where the word comes from. And I really enjoy looking at each new moon chart to see what the message is. We can intuit what the theme may be going on, of course. And so let me just mention a couple of things very briefly. We're not going to pull the charts up to take too much time. We really want to analyze the charts on the screen. But let me just mention this to everyone that on the Rave New Year, January 19th this year, the only definition in the chart was the channel of the perfected form, design of survival, individual circuitry. The first new moon after the Rave New Year was on February 9th. That was our new moon in Aquarius, and we had a stellium of planets there. And the only channel activated on that new moon was the channel of awareness, design of a thinker, also individual circuitry. The second new moon was on March 10th in Pisces, another stellium of planets. And that time we had the channel of initiation was the only channel activated, another individual channel. And the same for the spring equinox on March 19th. Only definition was channel of initiation. The third new moon in April was the solar new moon eclipse. Now, that eclipse was conjunct Chiron to the very minute of the degree, and it was an eclipse, which is always a big deal. Now, in that chart, there was no definition. It was like a reflector chart. However, the channel initiation was activated within a few hours of the spring equinox time. And we had that channel of initiation the whole month after that new moon. The fourth new moon was in Taurus on May 7th. And again, we had the channel of initiation as well as the channel of inspiration, two individual channels. And we are currently in our fifth lunar cycle, still working on the new moon in Gemini back on June 6th. And the two channels activated were the channel of mutation, a design that initiates and fluctuates. And we did also have the channel of the wavelength on this lunar cycle we're on. So yeah, 5 lunar cycles, the rave new year and the spring equinox. The only definition other than the wavelength this month was individual circuitry.
And it was all about initiation and who am I and what do I think about that and how can I reflower or reemerge as that.
Yeah.
And it's been it's such a beautiful, like on a bigger scale, it's that birthing, it's that very beginning of, say, a lunar cycle, but instead of 4 weeks we've had this 5 cycles, and each one we've grown a little bit with this initiation, as you called it, the drum beats, because it would come on and off and on and off and on and off, and it was a contractual period. We felt it that way. It was what is giving you contractions and what is trying to be birthed.
Yeah.
And so this whole invitation into birthing ourselves and perfecting that form.
Yeah. Well said. So if anyone listening has been experiencing these very stimulating times, when we think about individual activations, on one frequency, we have the melancholy, the uncertainty. These are such deep inner recesses of who we are as an individual. And so it can feel very uneasy in that sense, the uncertainty for sure. But to recognize that physical sensation is an offering, an invitation to go deeper inward.
Absolutely.
To discover our true personal inspiration and truth and how we might be able to share that in the world. And so in that sense, maybe difficult astrologically from one perspective, but certainly a grand opportunity.
Absolutely. And now that the solstice is here and we're switching gears a little bit, what we're doing is being invited to take that inner work that we have been doing or have not, and find its expression in the world with 15 and 5, this channel of rhythm, this ability for a plant to take roots and create form, this ability to stay steady as yourself within the all of it, and the patience to see your energy through and to move with what lights you up.
Yeah, really well said, noticing the channel of rhythm there. Let's point out a couple other factors. Just the fact that, so the summer solstice always happens when the sun moves into the astrological sign of Cancer. So as soon as the sun hits 0 degrees Cancer, that is the moment of the summer solstice. And it always takes place in gate 15, line 2. And the Earth is always in gate 10, line 2. And of course, when we have the winter solstice, it will be opposite. The sun would be in gate 10 and the Earth would be in gate 15. So it is in the gate of extremes and the gate of modesty. I think that kind of ties in well to the sun is at its extreme zenith for our longest day. It's when it touches the Tropic of Capricorn.
Yes.
And all this happens because of the tilt of the Earth. It's tilted at 23.5 degrees, and the Tropic of Cancer is at 23.5 degrees latitude.
And I love the taglines here, this natural influence.
Yeah.
The natural influence of self. This is energy to be self. And it's the ability to have a natural influence in the world as yourself through skills. But from what you just talked about, that inner work, that mining the gems that you've been talking about in your transit reports, the really allowing what's coming to the surface to tell a new story.
Yeah.
And here's the opportunity now.
And so much of that, when you use that word limitation, a large part of that story was because Pluto has been in gate 60 for a very long time. Pluto takes 248 years to go around the zodiac, so it spends a couple of years in each gate. And we've had it in gate 60 for a very long time. Now, Pluto left gate 60 in Aquarius for a little bit, and it's now in retrograde, still in gate 60, line 6. Will be in retrograde all the way till November and turn forward and eventually finally leave gate 60. So he's been doing his Plutonic mining, as you say,
Yeah.
mining the
Mining the
depths.
depths.
And so this idea of limitation in the channel of mutation, which was part of, again, this lunar cycle's activation. But yeah, when we think about fear, doubt, and insecurity, which we all have to some degree from past experiences where we've lost track of our authentic self, this has been this grand opportunity to move beyond that, to alchemize these limitations that hold us back from our truth of expression. And so these individual activations through each lunar cycle, and now this transition here into a chart that has two collective channels and a lot of other individual gates besides gate 60. We have Uranus is now in gate 8 after spending a year and a half in gate 23, but he's in the gate of contribution, individual contribution to group goals. Neptune in gate 25, the spirit of the self in the channel of initiation. And well, let's see, Jupiter did move into gate 16 just this week, the day prior to the solstice, but he was in gate 20 for quite a while. Yeah. So he's in gate 16. And with the south node in gate 48, that's what's bringing us the channel of the wavelength, a design of talent. So just to lay out a few of the, and one last planet I wanted to mention, Saturn, also in that individual circuitry in gate 22. And whenever Saturn is in a gate, we can think about the restructuring. The discipline, he is the taskmaster. He is always urging us, not always in the nicest way, but urging us on the path of maturity. And so with him in gate 22, we can get a sense of this opportunity to develop our emotional maturity within our individual expression, because it's an individual gate. So all that sort of just lining out where the activations are, back to that channel of the wave, or excuse me, the channel of rhythm. You said that so eloquently, and I really think that's the shift. How we're bringing those gifts, those potentiality of who we are, this greater sense of personal truth to share to group goals. How we're able to move into that rhythm. And I think a lot of that transition, when we go through these metamorphic processes that individual circuitry urges us to do, is that we make changes in our habits, changes in our attitude, but all of it revolving around this concept of our rhythm, how we flow. Whenever I see this channel, I always think of sort of the mastery of rhythm and flow, because it is collective, and all collective circuitry is correlated to mastery of patterns, the refinement, like the sculpture who polishes it to it's just shining. And this is the opportunity here, is to move that personal metamorphic process of growth and development and maturity into our daily life, so that it's a natural rhythm. It's not contrived. It's not a half-truth or any falsification based off a slick advertisement. It's the quintessence of who we have the potential to be. And the last thing I want to share on that channel was, I just thought it was so interesting that it was the moon in gate 5. So with the sun in gate 15 and the other luminary in gate 5, called the gate of waiting, but it is in the sacral life force energy itself. And this idea of following life, following our authority, letting life come to us, drawn through the magnetic monopole. I thought that was just really quite interesting to have our two luminaries bringing us this channel for the solstice.
Yes, very interesting.
Line 5 as well. You want to help us out with gate 5?
Yeah.
Or gate 5, line 5, one of the most beautiful keynotes Ra gave us in the Rabi Ching.
The keynote is joy. Waiting as an aspect of enlightenment. So to remain calm is the ultimate aesthetic, and thus recognize the inner meaning of being, the power to be calm and find one's place in the flow. So joyously, naturally influencing. I just think that's beautiful.
Yeah, very nice. And as we are still on that channel of rhythm and looking at the G center, we also have 3 of the love gates of the G center. Gate 15 being the love of humanity. And when I think of that gate, and it's called the gate of extremes, I think that, to me, it speaks to loving the extreme authenticity of each person.
Yeah.
Right? It really is the 9-centered individuation.
Yeah.
With Neptune at gate 25, we have universal love, the spirit of the self, and gate 10. where the earth is, and the gate of behavior, also attributed to self love, love of personal behavior. Quite a lineup in the G Center for
Beautiful ability,
it.
if you allow it, for your body to bring you in the direction of love.
And let's see, we have the channel of the wavelength, as we said, from the South Node in gate 48 and Jupiter in gate 16. And to me, this also speaks to this adjustment that we may be working with to incorporate what this new development means. There's the potential that we could be sharing it with our personal depth in a very skillful and talented way. So that's a beautiful message for us to contemplate, I think, on what this process has involved. And I think, as you mentioned, the gratitude, the abundance of the sun and the light, to really appreciate where we are. You know, we are where we are. We've gone through what we've gone through. It's not about any regrets from the past or yearning for things to be different, but just being present to the natural pattern of life and nature itself, I think.
Beautiful.
Well, if we look at the bring in some astrological aspects, and you look at the astrological wheel, you can see the main aspect, or at least the one that's the most brightest because it's the most exact, would be that Neptune is in a square to the sun.
It is 25 and 15. And so you call this dynamic tension.
Yeah, whenever we see a square, they are they are promoting growth and development, right? We sometimes in astrology, squares get a bad rap because they often can mean friction, but it's friction that promotes growth. And I always think of gate 6 whenever I'm talking about squares, because the tagline for gate 6 is the fundamental design component of progress is the law that growth does not exist without friction. And so whenever I see them in a chart, I appreciate them, even though sometimes they can present themselves with challenges, but it's through challenges that we find out who we are. But in this particular aspect, it's Neptune in gate 25. Now, Neptune is the planet of limitlessness. It's beyond the boundary of Saturn, our 3D world. It has no ends. That's why it's related to imagination, creativity, spirituality, and also delusion and loss of control in that sense. So typically, we might say with a square between the sun and Neptune, things are cloudy, that they're a little fuzzy. On the one hand, on a mundane level, we might say that about the particular day. But what I sense from this is the dynamic tension with that gate 25 and the spirit of ourself. And our spirit, if this relates to you, whoever's listening here, it may have been tested during this first half of the year. And I think this aspect here speaks to that the spirit does need to be tested to evolve, to grow and develop. And so that is really one of the main aspects coming from the gate 25 and the 15. Additionally, astrologically, Mercury and Venus are conjunct the sun, and they're all in Cancer. And yeah, when we think of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, we're thinking about our inner world, our inner security, our home, our family. And this is certainly a great time to be spending with friends and family out in nature during the abundance of the sun. And I always love the sign of Sagittarius. I mean, that's where the moon is in the gate 5, but Sagittarius is mutable fire. It's the unlimited possibility, the adventure of life. It's the Chiron the centaur shooting the arrow into lands unknown, and there the moon is. And so she brings this emotional quality and zeal for the zest for life in the gate 5. But really, again, it's not about chasing it. It's about allowing it to exist and be and follow the energy of our authority.
Yes.
Yeah. That's quite a beautiful lineup.
I think so too.
For this solstice chart, I think.
Yeah.
That Mercury and Venus, they are both in gate 52, which is also a format gate for the logical circuitry where these other two channels are part of. So when we think about Mercury being the planet of communication, Venus being the planet of love and harmony and beauty, Venus, often I say, it's what we want in life, this beauty and harmony. So to have those two planets, those two personal planets, in the format gate of 52 called keeping still, also called the mountain in the original I Ching, this is the root pressure to be still, to observe. It really, you can hear how these logical gates fit together, to be still and wait. Um, for the for the perfection of the pattern.
And I think 15 and 5 help with that.
Yeah.
And so does 48 and 16. I think there's just a lot of support, is what I was trying to say at the beginning.
Yeah.
A lot of support for being patient and practicing as often as you can until it becomes muscle memory. This expression of self, no matter how awkward or uncomfortable it is.
Yeah, for sure. And again, that I feel the logical nature of that. It's like that pattern. We see it, we observe it. What works, what doesn't, what do we adjust? It also may be a time of reestablishing boundaries or new boundaries, making adjustments. As we go through these metamorphic, deep inner developments, we have to adjust things in our environment. Just like tending the garden of the soul, I call it. Sometimes we've got to weed it a little bit. We've got to put the rocks around it, keep the varmints out, and so forth. And I think that's part of this transition we're in right now. I think for me, that's the message I'm taking, is that where can I make these take agency in that sense to create a vessel and a container of self-love and expression for others.
Beautiful.
What other things do you see in there that we should bring to the table?
Well, we kind of jumped around those gates. Okay, I think that was beautiful. So, what I heard you say was that we are invited to take all of the work and the harvest and what we have been mining over this last 6 months of individual circuitry and the channel of initiation pounding its drum, that we now are invited to take this fire that has been burning, celebrate it tonight, and go forward for the next cycle of the sun, and practice and be patient.
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
allow our skill to come to the surface.
Yeah, to see where the rest of this year takes us.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Brandy.
All right.
Thank you all.